Welcome on in, guys. Three Bold Takes yet again, and we are back. We did take a short hiatus, but we are back in full-fledged form. A lot of things happened in our personal life, so I'm glad that those things did happen for those of you that know. What we're going to do is, now that we're actually fully fledged in the offseason, spring games are starting to happen. I thought we could do a series entitled Realistic Expectations for. And not necessarily schools, but new head coaches at specific situations and universities. So we're going to have a couple of coaches that we're going to discuss here in this first, kind of release of these, if you will. First off, I want to talk about Mike Elko. Now, he is the new head coach at Texas A&M. If for those of you that did not know, he took after Jimbo Fisher. Texas A&M did go 7-6 yet again last year with Jimbo Fisher, but with Mike Elko in particular, this is his second stint in Texas A&M, or at Texas A&M. He was the defensive coordinator and safeties coach from 2018 to 2021, and that's something that when he was first hired, I did not know, was that he did have a prior stint there at Texas A&M. He comes over from Duke, coached there for 2 years. First year went 9-4, second year 7-5. With an upset win in week 1 over Clemson. Huge upset, 28-7. So let's just kind of have a conversation, right? He did win the ACC Coach of the Year in 2022. So he comes in with some accolades. He comes in with some big wins at somewhere like Duke where you're not expected to do that. Quinn, what's kind of your realistic expectation for Mike Elko and Texas A&M moving forward in 2024?
Well, let's start with this. I mean, obviously the SEC is just an incredibly deep conference, so you're already going to have like stiff competition, especially with it moving. I think it helps them slightly that we're moving away from a East-West format. The success at Duke, I think, speaks volumes for him long term. I mean, 7-5. It's important to note that's with your main player going down for a significant portion of the season as well. So in my opinion, two really awesome stints with Duke. First year, 7. I really see 6 to 9 wins possible. I'd hedge my bets on 7 or 8 being the more realistic goal in terms of a win total for Elko in year 1. I do think, though, you come away from the season feeling optimistic of what 2025 can be, especially with you being at let's be real, the true mark is going to be how do you recruit at Texas A&M in your recruiting bed of Texas. And I'd like to give him a couple off seasons to show me that. So, I'd go 7-8 wins as far as short-term 2024 expectation for Elko.
Yeah, I think if you're a Texas A&M fan, this offseason has been huge for you. I think Elko is probably one of the best names on the market. You had a couple different ones, but I think Elko for your program and where it's been the last few years after Fisher or during Fisher's term, this is a home run hire in my opinion. To do what he did at Duke, it's kind of like the equivalent of the Clemson and Alabama basketball teams right now making it to the Elite Eight. You're not supposed to win football games at Duke at all. And so to do that and to do that on prominent stages against very good ACC teams such as Clemson in their first game last year. And then as Quinn mentioned, your big star Riley Leonard going down to multiple games and not being able to come back. Elko pulled that ship all the way to the conclusion, could have easily folded up the season and just went about his business and returned to Duke for another year. But Elko did an amazing job. I think he matches Jimbo Fisher and wins those 7 games off the rip. What you're looking for in Texas A&M is I'm not really caring so much about the product this year on the field. I think he overhauls that next offseason brings in his own kind of quarterback, brings in his own kind of offensive system to really help him. And then I think that's when it really matters. I think here it's recruiting, like Quinn mentioned. And then it's also just the competitiveness that you do put on the field. And just like, hey, are we in these games? You got Texas this year. You got Florida, who's always a tough game. You got Arkansas, you got all these others. And are you staying in these games or are you losing by 30 or 40? A lot of the games Jimbo Fisher he was close in, but you could tell that Jimbo Fisher wasn't going to win some of those games. So how does Elko put his team on the field and put a ragtag group together to compete? I think he's going to be very successful. And then also, you don't want him to be like Brian Kelly. You don't want him to come out, win 9-10 games and win or go to the SEC championship his first year, because sophomore slump is going to hit really hard. You want him to have a really consistent first year and then have him jump in that second year, like Quinn mentioned. Fred?
Yeah, and I also think that it's something to bring up as well. Is I'm looking forward to seeing him bring over his culture to Texas A&M. Like the past few years at Texas A&M, even going back to when they signed that historic recruiting class where nobody is, still at Texas A&M that was a part of that class. You could just tell that they wanted out after they got there, right? Like there was an appeal to Texas A&M that was no longer there after they had been there and witnessed the ins and outs of the organization. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with the talent that's there, which, let's be honest, they're pretty talented. Like Texas A&M is normally extremely talented in comparison to a lot of the 7 and 6 teams in the SEC. Your Floridas, typically your Kentuckys, like schools like that, like they are way more talented than those 7 and 6 teams. So I expect him. I would say a 7 and 6 is great in his first year, especially with a new system. And I like that he's a defensive-minded coach at a school like Texas A&M as well. So that's kind of our realistic expectations. Don't expect him to win the SEC next year or even really compete with the top dogs week in and week out. And if you don't do that, then I think you Texas A&M fans are going to really enjoy you. So Mike Elko moving forward. So that's been 3 bold takes. That was our round 1 of our realistic expectation of new coaches. New videos coming out every week. So guys, stay tuned. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys later.